Stonewall Jackson had a regiment of vampires
Sure.
in his
Sure.
in his group and his brigades. And were there, in seeing that and knowing that there were vampire hunters as well, why? And because of the slavery issue, of course, that's how we get Lincoln involved.
Right.
And we have to read some of the book to understand
Right,
this.
right.
But why didn't Lincoln take advantage of the vampires, the quote good vampires unquote, and have a brigade of himself?
Numbers, because the good vampires are vastly outnumbered by. He's laughing at us. I mean, you can laugh. That's fine.
It's a shame to laugh at history, though.
Yeah, dare you, sir. The Henry Sturgis and his like.
Yes.
Very, very small number of vampires who believe in the rights of man,
Yeah.
who believe in sort of the separation of dead and living.
Well, the bad vampires give vampirehood a bad name.
They do. They kill without remorse. They make no, as Henry says, there's plenty of the sick. There are plenty of the sick and the wicked for us to feed on. We don't need to take children out of their beds. We don't need to separate families. We don't need to, kill good people. And on the other side of that argument, the vast number of American vampires are saying, wait a second, we could run this place. We could run this whole country. We could enslave not only the slaves, but all of mankind. So that's the conflict that's brewing.
Do you think in a murder trial today that someone could play the vampire card?
I mean, I think that if they're trying to get an insanity defense, going, sure. I'm sure it's happened.
Well, I wanted to show this 20th century image from Lloyd Ostendorf. And here is a rare image rendering Lincoln with his vampire game face.
Yeah, that's his decapitating face.
Yes, and I think he's right there just about, you don't see the axe, but you know what's happening.
Yep.
And it shows the intensity of the hunt. No?
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget that Abe was not only a genius, not only one of the greatest orators of his time, thinkers, scholars, maybe. He was also one of the most gifted killers of his age.
Now, he said in the journal, and I want to get back to that journal in a moment, he writes out, "I'll kill every vampire in America." Well, was that? My question was there merely youthful boasting on his part? But you're saying 5,000,
right?
And he takes care of a whole bunch in
he makes a dent. He makes a dent in that 5,000, but it's not a big enough dent, unfortunately. He realizes that yes, that is youthful boasting, and it is youthful anger, and he doesn't yet really know the full story when he says that there are vampires that would work with him, but he realizes later in his life, and therefore gets into politics, that the pen is mightier than the sword sometimes.
How do you respond to the strict Lincoln historians, collectors, and authors who would suggest that this book is sacrilegious to icon that Lincoln has become?
I would respond by saying, well, first of all, I'm here in in one of the sort of keepers of the flame of Lincolndom. I would respond by saying that the book is ridiculous on one hand, but also done with a sincere effort and respect for the man. My number one rule was, the premise is ridiculous enough. Never make Lincoln look ridiculous. Never make Lincoln look bad. First of all, I would not do that consciously because I, have tremendous admiration for him. I was afraid that would be the reaction to the book. That I would somehow be, run out of town by the Lincoln Roddy or the Lincoln scholars, but like yourself. But
we have you here.
Yeah,
so.
but I'm here. So things are good. Things are happening. I was invited. The first event that I had for the press tour for this book was at the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Museum and Library in Springfield, Illinois, and I was invited there by. I mean, that is the center of the Lincoln universe. And I was invited there to come speak to a crowd of over 400 people, some of whom dressed as Lincoln, some of whom dressed as vampires, all of whom were really enthusiastic about the book. I got to hang out with Tom Schwartz, who's the state historian of Illinois and knows as much about Lincoln as anybody, and gave me an incredible tour of the grounds, and let me hold a copy of the Gettysburg Address in my hands, you know, that Lincoln had written in his own hand. And then I got to speak on the phone with Doris Kearns Goodwin, who said that she had read the book and really enjoyed it and thought it was great fun and thought that it was a great thing that I was doing because we're, you know, yes, it's silly and yes, it's, you know, fun, but at the same time, you're bringing more people to Lincoln.
And you do respect Lincoln in this. I
Well,
respected
yeah.
that, and it brought me in and allowed me to read that book through.
Yeah.
Because that was the man. I saw that, although there were some instances I said,
Sure.
that's the man?
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it was credible within the book. Here's a question that I think probably is going to come up, and it already has, I know, because I've had this happen to me already.
Right.
And the question is from Catherine here in Chicago. Are you saying that Abe Lincoln was actually a vampire hunter? How are we supposed to believe this? So there's going to be those out there that are going to go in there and say,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And do you think that third graders who are hearing this from Catherine, perhaps, her kids along the line, will grow up believing?
My dream is that that happens.
Well put.
My dream is that that happens.
And someone else, by the way, out there, I want to say this, ask, will there also be a graphic novel of Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter? I can tell you that this is graphic. And graphic enough that Harold Holzer, whom you just mentioned,
Right.
I spoke with him yesterday,
Yeah.
and he has been reading this on the road, and he says he has trouble reading it in his hotel room. He becomes very frightened.
Really?
Yes.
That's
So,
incredible.
I want you to know that Harold Holzer
Well,
is frightened of vampires at this moment.
He wrote
So
a
it's
book.
graphic.
I got an early copy of his book called Lincoln President-Elect, and I read that book and really enjoyed it and used it, believe it or not, in some of the research for this book.
Now, this is based on a newly found Lincoln diary. Did you
right.
bring it for us to examine? And,
I'm afraid I can't do that. I'm afraid I'm not at liberty to show you the actual journals that
I hope
yeah.
this is not like the 18 missing pages of Booth's diary
Right.
that
Yeah.
that is so well known. It's written in a number of
10 volumes.
10 volumes?
Yeah, 10
And
little pocket-sized leather volumes.
the first one as well, because he was very young.
The first one you can actually watch from page 1 to the end of it. You can watch his penmanship improve and his spelling improve as it goes along. It's remarkable. And then by the end, of course, he's tightly packing the pages and writing very assuredly. You know, it's remarkable. I can't wait to show you someday.
I would look forward to it. You know, it was very famous, the story of Lincoln and a turkey early on whom he had killed. Lincoln killed the turkey and was very upset with it. So,
And
Was
would never kill another living thing as long as he lived. Not even in my book.
now the thing is that to me it was his vaunted revulsion to harm animals, a ruse to cover up his vampire hunting.
I don't think so. I think he was. Well, he was also. That was the very different 7-year-old Lincoln as opposed to the 9-year-old Lincoln, who had lost his mother and then found the truth about what was going on. So this is before he swears his sort of blood oath to rid America of vampires. He's such an innocent little boy, you know, at that point, before he becomes the steely-eyed vampire hunter that we know and love.
Well, you know, we talk about his character, and you early on in the book, page 15, you state that the towering myth of Honest Abe is inherently dishonest. Could he have? But my question is, could he have continued his life's work of vampire hunting if he had allowed this to come out? If everyone had known he was doing this,
No.
so he was being honest, perhaps, to his calling.
Lincoln, in his real life, was not above telling a little white lie. I think, so long as it was served a noble purpose. And he was a very honest man, but he wasn't stupid. And he realized, I think, in the book, that if he just went out in the middle of the Civil War and said, "Time out, let me tell the American people what this is really about. It's these two groups of vampires fighting each other. We're fighting a proxy war for them." All right? They would have thought him a lunatic. Or, even worse, they would have believed him and there would have been panic in the streets and we would have torn ourselves apart even more. So I think he very cleverly keeps the secret that very few living men in his time new.
Has there been any backlash today from vampires living today or vampire hunters themselves?
I guess vampire hunters, no, they're finally getting their respect that they've long deserved. Vampires, I can only say if I turn up missing or headless somewhere, you know, I guess the answer is yes.